I'm going to show you how to anchor your thread to start a hand sewing project, and I'm going to show you how to tie that thread off when you either are finished sewing your seam or need to replenish your thread. I'm going to take my needle and thread, and I've got two pieces of fabric pinned to each other. So in the case that you just are working with a flat piece of fabric or two pieces or numerous pieces of fabric pinned flat together, all you're going to do is, starting at wherever your seam starts, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to sew from the right to the left. If you're left-handed, you frequently, but not always, want to anchor on the left and sew from the left to the right. In this case, I'm going to anchor on the right. I'm going to put my, if I want a half-inch seam allowance, I'll put my needle through from the edge of the fabric half an inch in. I'm going to pull my needle all the way through. And there's my thread. I've got my thread with the knot pulled all the way up against the fabric in the back. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bite of fabric with the tip of my needle. All right. I'm going to pull that through. I'm going to leave this loop. I'm going to leave a little bit of a loop. Make sure that your thread doesn't get all tangled up. All right, so I've got a loop and I've got my needle. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to put it through that loop, and I'm going to pull my needle all the way through with the thread and put my finger on top of it so that the anchor goes right against the fabric. So do that again. Take a little bite of fabric, needle goes through. Okay, I'm going to pull this through, but you want a little bit of this loop left. I'm going to put my needle through the loop of thread. I'm going to pull and put my finger on top of it to make sure that it gets right on top. Okay, then I'm also going to knot my thread. So I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to loop it once like that, all right, and then there is a little X that forms, well, a Y actually, I suppose. All right, so I've got my thread that I'm holding here, and here's my needle. I want that against the fabric, and again I'm going to put my finger on it and pull and knot right over it. If you want to do it again, sometimes your knot doesn't get right close up to it. There's a bit of thread there gathered up. It's pretty well anchored right now, but that's okay. All right. You want to test your anchor, so you do that by taking your fabric and kind of pulling it apart. That's not going anywhere. I can't pull my fabric. You don't want to yank on it because you probably will tear your fabric. But if you give your fabric a little tug and it doesn't come apart, that is a successful anchor. All right? Then you would start your stitch from here, whatever your chosen stitch might be. If you are anchoring in thread or in fabric like this that's been folded up, it's a little bit different. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is, again, I'm going to be sewing from the right to the left. If you are left-handed, for most stitches you will want to sew from the left to the right. I'm going to unfold my fabric that I have pressed up. I have two folds. So in the fold that will end up being at the top, but ends up being at the bottom when you unfold it, you want to take your needle and you want to put your needle just right in that fold. And I'm going to pull the thread up, all the slack, so that the knot is up against that fold on the inside of the fabric, that when you refold it, you can't see the knot anymore. So that protects the knot. keeps it guarded so that nothing can happen to it, and then hopefully your stitch won't pull out. Then to continue the anchor, it's similarly to starting the other one. Once you've got the knot through, you want to go above the fold of the fabric, right where your knot comes out, and into the fold of the fabric. And you loop it in like that. All right, so you go above the fold of the fabric and into the fold of the fabric. Pull it almost all the way through, then take your needle and loop it through like that. And if you need to, you can put your finger on top of it again to get it all the way through. And you can, if you feel you need to anchor more than twice, go ahead. You usually can't anchor too many times. And then again, you're going to take your thread, make a loop, bring your needle up through it, get the little juncture of the Y down against the fabric, put your thumb on top of it, and pull. Okay. This is something that will take practice if it is an unfamiliar set of movements for your hands. It is a fine-tuned skill that you're learning, so be patient and just practice it, and you will get better with practice. Again, you can give it a little tug. That's not going anywhere. And from here, you can start your stitch. The last thing I'm going to show you is how to tie off. So I have a seam here that I'm finished sewing, and I made it all the way to the end of my fabric. This is the same if you have gotten partway through a seam but need to replenish your thread. You notice now how much thread left. So I'm lucky I actually made it to the end of my hem here. But in order to tie it off, I've completed my last stitch, and right where I sewed my last stitch, that spot where I went into the fabric, again I'm going to go above the fabric and into the fabric. I have that loop, and then you put your needle through that loop, pull it through, do that twice, right on top of the same spot, and then knot it as before. Trim your thread, give it a test, see if it's going to go anywhere. That's not going anywhere. That's a good secure seam right there. Now if you have your flat seam, again, it's actually a little bit easier, because all you need to do is right where you've come up, you'll go into the fabric like that. It's just a tiny little stitch, make your loop, needle goes through the loop, and again pull it down against the fabric. Do that twice, at least twice. Again, you can anchor more than twice if you feel better doing so, and then knot on top of that. That's how you tie off on the flat fabric.